Hello everyone, I'm Paul Thewlis and welcome to this Wisdom of Hindsight business webinar by two wise heads. It's a collaboration between me and Rob Chiaroli, who today will take us through the whys and hows of SWOT analysis. Hi Rob.
Hi Paul, and hello everyone online, and thanks so much for taking the time to listen in today. I'm really looking forward to discussing the importance of SWOT analysis with you all over the next 30 minutes or so. And I hope you have your lunch with you and removed any distractions. What I'll be doing is showing you why spending some time and effort on a SWOT analysis is so crucial to the success of any business.
Yes, I'm looking forward to that. But before we do, we should cover some basic housekeeping. We want these webinars to be interactive, so we'd love you to send some questions through at any time, or you can wait to the Q&A session at the end. To do that, you'll see a box on the top right-hand side of the screen like this one. Just type your question and we'll answer it during the webinar, or Rob will follow up with you later. I'll remind you that a replay of the webinar will be sent to you after the conclusion, along with Rob's slide presentation. So don't try and get down all the details, just note down any jewels of information or immediate actions that you find important. Okay, Rob, so tell us about SWOT and how we can benefit from it.
Thanks, Paul. Well, the SWOT analysis concept has been attributed to a guy called Albert S. Humphrey in the 1960s. He was a US business and management consultant, and it really just entered common usage in corporate offices. Since then, it's been a mainstay for strategic development. It represents a matrix planning approach that evaluates the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of a business. And while we'll be talking about its role in business today, you can essentially do a SWOT on almost any project, product, or even a person. For example, if you're assessing your career prospects, you can actually do a SWOT analysis for that.
Oh, that's a great point, Rob. It's a process that isn't just limited to business strategies.
That's right, Paul. I'm going to start today's discussion by putting the SWOT into perspective for you all. On my business card, I have this quote which I use to help clients understand how a business coach works. As you can see, it's feed a man a fish and he lives for a day, teach a man to fish and he lives for a lifetime. And that's from a Chinese proverb.
Yeah, I like that quote. So how does it apply here?
Well, Paul, the SWOT analysis is a crucial part of the teaching aspect. It helps apply what's actually being taught. So if we apply that, here's a group of people who've been taught to fish, literally. However, as you can see, there are a lot of them in a small confined space, all going for the same fish. And that's exactly the case in business. I can teach how to market, how to sell, how to set up procedures and processes, how to communicate, how to hire and manage staff, but in the end, many business owners are entering a congested market. So you need to stand out in some way, and the SWOT analysis approach helps you identify what you need to do.
Yes, I find with my clients that they're continually trying to find ways to make their website stand out in the crowd.
Yeah, okay, so let's look at the whys for doing a SWOT before we go through what a SWOT entails. So a SWOT here, it helps you provide a clear focus for you and your business. It sets you aside from your competition. It helps you identify opportunities you can exploit and eliminate any threats that could undermine your business in any way. And that way it helps you carve out a sustainable niche. A SWOT really is a kickstart to your strategy formation, and if you use it in a comprehensive and sophisticated way, it becomes a seriously robust strategy development tool you can rely on for sustainable business growth. Now, unfortunately, and given that SWOTs have been around and used for over 50 years, it's been my experience that most SWOTs are not done well. and many companies and businesses have done them as part of their business process without giving them the attention they deserve. This has led to questions within management circles about how beneficial they can be, and has even resulted in development of other tools to either replace or add to them. Things such as the TOES matrix, which I'll explain a little bit later. So here are a few reasons why a SWOT analysis can actually fail to deliver the results that they could. Where there's not enough time and resources given towards generating the characteristics that you're looking for in a SWOT, they become too generalised and unfocused in their approach. The task itself of doing a SWOT has become just routine in business, and it's just an expected task of the business, and that way it becomes mundane and people don't give it the attention that it should. And then people also then focus on getting as many points down in a box, so looking at the quantity rather than looking at the quality of each point and how important it is. And finally, and probably the one that is the most prominent, is that the actions don't follow from the SWOT. It's no point doing a SWOT and then not setting up strategies and specific actions to follow up with.
Okay, Rob, so let's get into what a SWOT is all about.
Okay, so here's a typical SWOT layout that everyone would be familiar with. It's a typical quadrant approach with the 4 areas. You've got your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats. Okay, so the first element is the strengths of you and your business. The strength is a characteristic of you or your business that gives it an advantage over the others. By definition, it's important that you focus on clearly superior characteristics, not just common strengths. To help you identify your strengths, here are a few questions you can ask yourself. What do you do better than anyone else? What's unique or low-cost resources do you have? What do your clients see as your strengths? What will mean you will get the sale? And what sets you apart from your competitors?
Well, that seems clear-cut, Rob.
It is, Paul. Yes, but no. Over the past 25 years, I've seen my fair share of SWOTs, and it frustrates me when I see characteristics entered as strengths when they really aren't distinguishing strengths at all.
Okay, can you give an example?
For sure. The most overused strength I see in a lot of SWOTs is the word passionate. While you can have a passion for what you do, how you assess your levels of passion versus a competitor is a big question. It's pretty fair to say we're all passionate about what we do. So strengths, in my opinion, need to be more objective in nature. They need to reflect particular skills or levels of experience that you can build on relative to others. The next thing we're going to cover are weaknesses. Again, here you want to focus on characteristics that are lacking and a disadvantage compared to others you compete with. So here are the questions that you can ask that can guide you. What can be improved? In what areas do your competitors have an edge over you? What necessary expertise or manpower do you currently lack? And what causes you to lose sales? And finally, what would your customers say your particular weaknesses are?
I take it this can be tough for some people, like to admit their weaknesses.
Yes, it can be, Paul. It's an area I probably spend more time on with clients when going through the SWOT. I think it's human nature to avoid admitting weaknesses. But in business, this is important. It's an area your competitors will be targeting to bring you down. So you must identify these honestly.
Okay, so on to the fun bit, opportunities next, Rob.
Yeah, so but before we do, Paul, I want to highlight another core aspect of SWOT analysis, and that's the concept of internal and external characteristics. The strengths and the weaknesses we've just gone through are representative of internal characteristics. That is, they're aspects about you and your business directly. The opportunities and the threats that we'll cover now are about external factors, about the market and the environment you operate in. So it's important when you do a SWOT not to confuse this because it really upsets the whole concept of a SWOT analysis. Okay, so having clarified that, let's get on to the opportunities. These are the elements of the market and the environment that we can exploit to our advantage. Again, questions you can ask yourself include: what trends do you see in the industry? What external, political, environmental, social, and technological changes present interesting opportunities for you and your business? And what have you seen in the news recently that might present an opportunity?
Okay, and the threats?
Okay, the threats, again, those elements in the environment that can cause trouble to you and your business. So the questions you ask yourself in this case is: what obstacles do you face? What is the competition doing that you're not? And again, what external political, environmental, social, and technological changes could adversely affect your business in this case?
Okay, Rob, so how do we put all that together?
Okay, well, the way to do it is to use a matrix approach. Conventionally, people use that 2 by 2 matrix, which I showed you earlier, and that works well. For today's presentation, I'm actually going to use a simple table format, and in the end, you use whichever one works for you. You can see here how we'll go about recording the various characteristics, and you can see I've clearly identified the internal and the external distinctions. What we want to achieve in the end is what I call a matching process, Paul. We want to match our strengths to the opportunities in the market and take complete advantage of them. And then we want to make sure that our weaknesses aren't exploited by the threats in the market. So I've crossed that off to show you how we want to block that off.
Okay, so that sounds easy enough. Can we go through an example of that?
Yeah, what we'll do is I'll carry on with my fisherman scenario and create a very simple SWOT.
Mm-hmm.
So a couple of basic strengths that this fisherman in question might have is that he's fished these waters for over 20 years. He's got a distinct advantage over most in that he knows every nook and cranny of the river. He also knows which fish are here and what bait preferences. So among the hordes, he's got something at least in his favour. We can add that, though, that as a result of his 20 years of fishing, he's got an arthritic shoulder, and this limits his ability to cast at distance. In terms of opportunities, there's been plenty of rain, and that's increasing the fish numbers as they forage for food. And he knows there's plenty of fish as the breeding conditions were great last year. And then finally, with the threats, unfortunately, others know that too. So it's a popular stretch of river, as you saw in the photo. And the Fisheries Department's very hot on enforcing regulations about fish lengths and bag limits. So matching all this up, we could come up with some simple strategies to maximise the fisherman's success. So he can arrive as early as possible to secure the best fishing spot. He can purchase a longer and more flexible rod to help him cast. He can make sure he's got the best quality of bait available on the day, and he can narrow his attention to a specific species of fish that bait will attract. That way he can catch his daily limit and let the others flounder on the shoreline. So that's a pretty simplified case, but the principles apply in any business scenario. Again, you just match your strengths to the opportunities and address your weaknesses so you're not the one left floundering.
So that's a very simple example. Is that what you'd really expect to see from a business owner?
That's a great question, Paul, and I guess it's the crux of the issue here with the SWOT analysis. It's a fact that many business owners, in fact, do a SWOT in those simple terms, or maybe a little more in depth than that, but as I pointed out earlier, by and large, they don't give the SWOT nearly enough time and effort. As with any business assessment, the quality of the data that we're working with determines the veracity of the strategies you develop. And the more you know of your market and the competitors, and the more confidence you can have in the strategies that they will deliver. The ideal thing, for example, for business owners to do is to do a SWOT on your competitors. What are their strengths and how are they going to use those against you, and what are their weaknesses, and what can you do to take advantage of those? Now, this is really entering the realm of real strategic approach when you can do this sort of analysis.
So can we look at an example or two that represent what a typical SWOT for a business would look like?
Absolutely, Paul. I'll go through a couple of examples here today. The first is a relatively simple SWOT that any business in a stable market can do. In this case, it's a startup business consulting firm. So here we can see the various strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats that they've identified. So as you go through the table, you can see that this organisation is able to respond pretty quickly. They've got no red tape and they don't have high management approval. They give really good customer care as a result of not having a lot of work, so they can devote their time to their customers. Their lead consultant has got a good, strong reputation in the market. They can make quick decisions and change their marketing pretty quickly if it's not working, and their overheads are pretty low, so they offer very good value to their customers. In terms of weaknesses, company's got very little market presence. It's just a startup, so its reputation isn't established as yet. They've got small staff numbers, shallow skill base in a lot of the areas that they're involved with. They're vulnerable if key staff become sick or they leave, and obviously being a new company, their cash flow is going to be unreliable until they really kick off. In terms of opportunities, this business sector is expanding, and there's many future opportunities for success. The local government is encouraging local business development, and their competitors are slow to take on new technologies. And finally, in terms of threats, the development of technology can change this market beyond their ability to adapt. It's a fast changing market, which they've obviously identified, and they've also identified that any change in focus by their large competitor could wipe out a lot of their market position. So here's a few strategies, given this SWOT analysis, that this particular firm could develop. So they can specialise in a rapid response because they can respond very quickly. They can focus on their good value services to local businesses and local government and set up a nice alliance there. They can target their marketing to local publications and get the best possible market presence so they can raise their position in the market. And they've identified that they need to keep up to date with their technologies. So that's how they could develop that one. Mm-hmm. The second example I want to present is a more sophisticated approach, and one that really does deliver very targeted strategies. It involves, as I mentioned earlier, going through a thorough SWOT on both you and your competitors. And in this way you can develop strategies that consider what might be going on, as well as strategies that you need to do to maximise your business success. So here we have an example of come up with. I think I've seen Kylie online, and you probably appreciate this one. I've chosen to do one personal trainer versus a gym. So you can see it's the same sort of tabular approach. We've got the personal trainer in the middle column, so the strengths there, highly trained. By the way, I don't know this market at all, so I've just come up with these. I think they're just reasonable SWOTs for both sides, but it shows us how we could do this. This personal trainer has a large list of satisfied clients. She's got testimonials from noted sports people. She's got the ability to communicate with her clients and build strong rapport. And when she's got clients, they hang around with her for well over 12 months. and she's got low overhead, so they're all key strengths for her. Her weaknesses is that she's a sole operator. If she's not working, then it doesn't get done. She's got limited equipment. She doesn't have any covered facilities where the weather turns. And being a sole operator, she's got limited access to funding. In terms of opportunities, there's a strong focus on personal fitness in the media at the moment. She's identified that people prefer a personalised approach. The local council is supporting health programs in the area, and the obesity problem is getting a high media coverage at the moment. And finally, in terms of threats, you can see that the economy is flagging and finances are being stretched for most households, so access to money isn't readily available. And these 24/7 gyms are growing in popularity as a result of their opening hours. So it doesn't matter when somebody wants to exercise, they can find a gym that's open somewhere. So on the other side, the personal trainer can actually do a SWOT for the gyms and see what their particular strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats are. So in this case, I've come up with the fact that they've got covered facilities available 24/7 as a strength. They've got a whole range of equipment for all training requirements, and they've got a nice low-cost membership package for people to use as they need the equipment. Their weaknesses, they don't have any personalised training plans. Their costs for cleaning and maintenance are pretty high. The clients that join don't hang around much longer than 3 months. Ventilation is a problem within the gym, and they need to look at their security on a 24/7 basis. In terms of opportunities, again, these can be similar, but they can also differ between the cases. So in this case, the strong focus on personal fitness is high. The local council is a local council, so they're supporting all sort of health-related programs. And they've identified as an opportunity, rather than the personal trainer as a threat, that people are looking to spend more family time, and they like the idea of 24/7 gyms because they can go anytime they've got access to. And finally, the threats, they've identified the clients want a personalised approach, and they don't know how long these fitness fads are likely to change. So it sort of identifies the two distinct things. So here are some of the strategies, for example, that the personal trainer could develop and implement as a result of that competitive SWOT. She can decide to specialise in obesity management. She can look at a collaboration with local council. She can look for a location to use in winter if she can't get out and about. She can use the testimonials of these noted sports stars in her marketing campaign to grow credibility, and she can promote the success of that long-term engagement using a personal trainer compared to a gym. Now, at the same time, she would also need to address what would they do if the gym appointed their own personal trainer and provide that personalised service. So you need to have strategies in place because they've identified that as a particular weakness that the gyms have, and so they may choose to address that. And also, how can they address the cost comparison issue, cost of a personal trainer versus the potentially cheaper cost of a gym?
Oh, that's great, Rob. All right, so is there anything else that you want to mention in regards to creating a worthwhile SWOT analysis?
Yes, there is, Paul, and that's simply to say that you're more likely going to need more than one SWOT for your business. Ideally, you do a SWOT for each segment or project that you're involved with. So, for example, in your business, Paul, you could do a competitive SWOT analysis for the web development market.
Yep.
The strategies you derive from that would be different to a SWOT you would perform for the web intelligence or SEO market you can compete, wouldn't they?
Yeah, they sure would. Yeah.
And different again for the e-commerce demand. So conceptually, you would need 3 SWOT analyses performed with 3 sets of strategies.
Yeah, well, I found that saying that, really useful, Rob. I agree with you about the different segmenting of the SWOTs up, and I hope people listening have gained something from that. Before I get to you to summarise, can I ask the listeners to submit any questions for Rob, and hopefully we can get through as many as possible. Rob will definitely follow up with you if we run out of time. We've covered a bit here, and I believe you have a workshop plan for those who want to explore this further, Rob.
Yes, I do, Paul. So let me summarise first the key take-home points. Okay, so a SWOT analysis will guide you in how to best take advantage of you and your business's talents and abilities. It'll help you uncover opportunities you can exploit. It'll help you manage and eliminate any threats you identify. It provides the base for you to craft the strategies needed to distinguish yourself from your competitors and thereby create your niche. When completing a SWOT, make sure you remember that strengths and weaknesses are internal and opportunities and threats are external. Make sure you give enough time and effort and resources needed to give the data you make effective. And finally, segment your market and perform a SWOT on each of those segments. Then you can derive strategies for each SWOT and market segment, and you can direct yourself more efficiently that way. Now, I do have a template I have available on my Grapes to Grange website, and I'll send you the link after the webinar, but you can go to my website, go to the free resources section, and you'll find it all there for you. And download it among some other resources that I have. And as you mentioned, the workshop, here details of my workshop. I've scheduled for the 28th of May. It's 3 hours from 9 till 12, and it includes a personal one-on-one SWOT review and critique session with me. So it combines a group workshop with a private coaching session, all included in the one fee of $247. Now, I'll be repeating this workshop, I think, on a regular basis, so if this date doesn't suit, just drop me an email and I'll let you know of future scheduled workshops. Or I do this training on a one-on-one basis as well. So if people prefer that method, then again, just drop me a line and we can arrange something one-on-one. Again, I'll provide the Eventbrite link to this workshop, as well as a link to the template by email after the webinar.
Okay, I'm sure that'll be a popular workshop, Rob, after people have seen the framework that you've outlined today. And that is a great idea for a private follow-up session.
Thanks, Paul. Yeah, what I've found in real business life is that business owners usually don't have all the available information at hand during the actual workshop. So by offering a private follow-up session, they've got the time to gather the information they need, formulate some strategies, and then we can sit down one-on-one and discuss how resilient and appropriate they are for their specific business.
Okay, so we've got a couple of questions here. We've got, so we'll move on to those. Lisa says, what if you know your weaknesses and yet cannot easily address them due to cost, etc.?
Yeah, that's a tough one. The first part obviously is that identifying your weaknesses is paramount. So you've done that, assuming you've done that. If cost is an issue, then, I mean, that's a limitation. Unless you can find funding and it's an absolute necessity for you to change that weakness, you need to find it. Otherwise, you just need to restrict your market to a point where that weakness won't be an issue. A weakness only becomes relevant if somebody takes advantage of it. And if you're in a more competitive market, then the likelihood of that happening is higher, and therefore it becomes a real issue. So it becomes a strategic decision because that becomes a super weakness there because you don't have the money for it. It becomes a strategic decision for you then to tighten your market focus so that weakness isn't realised. That's probably the best answer I can give at this point. But Lisa, again, if you have more information or you want to talk about that off air, happy to interact with you with that one.
Okay, we've got a comment, I think, here from Kylie, perhaps not a question, I'm sure, but she says here, low overheads only if I set up in my own garage. So I think that's probably referring to your SWOT.
My assumption of a weakness.
Your assumption, yeah.
No, that's fine, Kylie. Yep, that's cool.
So I've just got a bit of a question there about this, Rob, is that you go through this thing, and I think one of the things about this is actually to have a real focus about these points. Like how do you really draw out the reality of this rather than, you're so used to selling your business and telling everyone how great it is and all that sort of stuff, but stand back a little bit and do all this, analysis and make sure it's comprehensive and real rather than just, something that's a bit pretend and overview. So how do you really get into the guts of that and make sure that works?
So that's a great question, Paul. And I guess that's where the coach comes in. If you can get somebody external to ask those questions of you and your business, they do challenge you that way. You can get into a comfort zone. You tend to believe you know everything you need to know about your market until somebody external can do that. The alternative is you can do it yourself, but you need to invest your time and your money into getting the information. So again, it's a balance of what you believe you know and self-acceptance that maybe what you understand isn't really the be-all and end-all. So you need to take some steps to get the rest of it done.
Yeah, I remember doing a SWOT one time with a group of people, and we actually went around the room and got everyone to do a SWOT on their own personal selves as far as that relates to the business. And one person sort of stood up and said their strength was they're a team player, and everyone else in the room sort of looked around at each other and went, really?
No,
so,
you're not.
Not the way we look at it. So it becomes a fairly there can be some awkward moments in trying to be a little bit real about where you stand, I suppose. And that's where a third party helps.
Yeah, and that's I think over the last 50 years that SWOTs have been used. That's one of the major shortcomings is that you can become complacent about it, and you just do it. You just copy the SWOTs from last year to this year without really giving them their due time and effort and keeping them contemporary.
Yeah. Now, you were talking about that issue of people looking for contemporary approaches or looking for alternative approaches, and you mentioned a TOES analysis earlier, which I don't think we got back to. So can you go through that one for us?
Oh, sure, Paul. Yeah. TOES was one of the tools that were developed as a result of people not being entirely happy with a SWOT analysis. The main issue that people find with SWOTs is that no actions were derived from them. So the TOES matrix, and I've got one here to show you what it looks like, follows on from the SWOT, and it drives you to establish the strategies. It still looks at your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats that you pull out of your SWOT, but it then focuses them on the external factors. So, here's what it looks like. So you can see it's again a matrix approach. On the left-hand side, you've got listed all the strengths that you've identified. 3, 4, 5, whatever they are. All your internal weaknesses that you've identified. Then on the top, you've got all the external opportunities and the external threats. And so what the TOES strategic matrix does for you, it asks you those questions within that quadrant there. What strategies do you use your strengths for to maximize your opportunities, and what strategies will use your strengths to minimize your threats? And finally, what strategies that minimize weaknesses can be developed to take advantage of opportunities? And again, what strategies can you use to minimize weaknesses that way that it avoids any threats in the market? So it's a way of forcing you, if you like, to derive strategies, and from these strategies you then implement actions that address all your issues, and hopefully as a result you have a successful business hitting all the right spots.
Okay, so that's great. I think just to prompt anybody else who's got further questions, we'd love to get them from you. One of the other questions I had for you, Rob, was often I've done the SWOT analysis, and people sort of go, oh yeah, I've done this before, do we have to do it again, sort of stuff. But when you actually sit down and do it, everyone gets quite invigorated by it. How often do you think that this process should be done within a business?
Look, a minimum annually, but in reality, it's whenever the market changes, or whenever you've got a new project or product or person that's taking over things, because you get a different perspective. So you could do quarterly SWOTs. Absolutely, I've been in businesses where SWOTs are reviewed every quarter, but I'd say minimum annually, and make sure you start from scratch. You just don't bring out last year's SWOTs and just rehash them and see if they've changed or not. It's really pays to start from scratch each time.
Yeah, and if I'm sort of like sitting over the kitchen table, got my new business, I'm sort of starting up and getting involved in doing a project, and I'm excited about it, but get a bit of paper out and do my own SWOT. But is there a sort of particular approach for a startup that you would encourage beyond just sitting there and trying to dream it up yourself?
Look, there's plenty of information online. You can get SWOT templates anywhere, including the one that I offer that guides you that way. You follow the questions that I pose. That you follow those sorts of questions, and they help you derive what needs to go into each of the boxes.
I'm thinking sort of from a point of view of perhaps bring people around you to participate in that SWOT, even though you're going to be a one-person startup.
Absolutely.
Do you use suppliers or people that you're going to use to participate in that process? You
get mentors. You get people that have worked in that area. You pull out as much information as you can. The internet's a good source of it. But getting as many people involved that you have faith and trust in is always great, and the more heads around you. I think the biggest problem is when people just do it themselves, because it's a very it's a very truncated view of their business. So they need to get as many as possible different views. So you go to networking events, find out what's going on, who's doing what and where, and get as much information you can from as many sources as possible.
Okay, so Gillian's asking, how much time would you generally need to do a SWOT?
How long's a piece of string? Look, if you've got all the information, you could do a SWOT in you could do a SWOT in an hour if you had all the information. Generally, though, you don't have all the information, so you've got to go off and get it. So, I'd give it, when I was managing marketers, they'd take 2 or 3 weeks to work on each of their SWOT and then all the strategies that came out of those and be prepared to stand up and back them. So again, it's anywhere from an hour to 2 weeks, Gillian, would be the answer. And it depends on your market, how much you know, and what you really want to achieve, what your ultimate goal is. Once you know that, you can work out how much effort you want to put into it. So
okay, Lisa's... Yeah, great. That's good, Rob. And Lisa's asking, would you do both the SWOT and then the toes, or does the toes really replace the SWOT?
No, you do them both. So the SWOT actually gives you your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And then the toes part of it is that central part there that it does the strategic side of it. So it takes each of those strengths and you determine those strategies. So it's an add-on tool to the SWOT.
Okay, fantastic. Well, I think that's been great, Rob. I think we're just about running out of time. I mean, I think that the really big thing that I got out of that is the idea of doing a SWOT from the perspective of your competition, if you like. So, what would they be doing and saying to try and outsell you? And I think that's a really interesting approach to doing it, and stepping outside yourself a little bit. So that's great. Thanks to everyone for their attendance today. We hope you've got something out of it, and our next webinar is in 2 weeks' time, and that'll be on the engineering of building an internet marketing machine, and that will be basically Rob interviewing me about that. So some things we've learned with helping clients with online marketing and the like. So we invite you to visit our Two Wise Heads website and register for that webinar. We'd love for you all to come along and join in that. It's bye from now from us, and we hope to see you in 2 weeks' time. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Rob.
See you all. Bye.